I'm going to start rolling because there's no way this is ending well. No, the word that came to mind is, there it is, flexible. For some reason, supple was the word that I replaced with flexible, and yeah.
You know, I'm all for changing the word to supple anyway when we use it.
Anyway.
Pliable.
Oh my god, yeah. So, hi everybody, welcome to Strange Dear. It's Kay.
Oh shoot, Kay, I didn't even finish fixing my hair.
Finish whatever you're gonna do then. I started rolling, and this will.
No, keep rolling. We're gonna go at the top, not today.
You're gonna roll now?
Are we? It's okay. Should we do this?
You're fine. Whatever. Okay, we jokingly structured this into our stupid live show, but I do believe every single session starts with kind of being like, I'm not ready, and I'm like, you're fine.
Okay, is here okay? It's like a little button. It's like a little panic button.
Or
a Lego
I'm not
person.
gonna look at you for the rest of the time without thinking it's like your little top knot panic button.
My like hat on. Oh, great. Now I have to take...
Oh, God. Now I'm taking a second pass at this. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Strangest of Strange Dears. This is Kay.
This is Juliana. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, my gosh, Juliana. So, in a way, I know it's only been a week since our live show as we're recording this morning, but in another way, it feels like a year ago because so much has happened.
Yes.
How was your trip back?
Oh my gosh, it was actually a really good trip back. On the trip, I had some entertainment, which we'll talk about later in the podcast.
Okay.
That kept me engaged, and it's beautiful weather down here.
And alert while driving.
Absolutely love it.
For instance, for multiple hours on end. That will also be something we talk about in a few.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, for me, it's been. I know the weekend happened. Let's be clear. Yeah. I know it happened because I have video evidence that it happened.
Like, all of this, now you sound like a 20-year-old.
Yeah, no, I only. Actually, no, it was a lot of fun because we recorded our show on Friday night to a fantastically enthusiastic NLT audience.
I love the NLT folks.
You guys were so good. We love you. We love you. And then I turned right around, got myself up at 5 o'clock in the morning on Saturday so we could drive up to Albany for the 40th annual Freihofer's Run for Women, which I logged a course best of 31:30. At this point, when you're going to see this on Thursday, you will have already seen the little feature video that I edited together for
which is so great.
My diary, which I haven't done. I haven't done like a vacation diary since I was probably about 12. So
we need to bring those back.
They're fun. In fact, I think
it's like
should. I think in something that's happening soon, I should vacation diary like I've never vacation diaried before.
You know, didn't they like in the 60s used to have people come over to see slideshows of their vacation? Like they would I feel like there's some play or movie script that I read where it was like a thing for people to go on vacation. They would take a bunch of pictures on their film camera. They'd take it to the photography lab, get them made into slides, and they'd have all their neighbors and friends come over and watch a slideshow. This is, like pre-Facebook.
This is,
and they show their vacation.
So apparently...
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I do know what you're talking about. Neither of us are of the vintage to have had slideshow parties. But I imagine that if were I to have a slideshow party, it would be a lot like the little video you guys saw, yes, including weird sound effects and Star Trek references, because that's how I roll.
I love it.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
How's this hairdo?
Yep. She's still going.
I'm still going.
Thought I scripted this on Friday, and we did, but it's actually just truth. You're fine. You're fine.
Yeah. Okay.
No, so anyway, I did the Freihofer's Run for Women, 40th annual. About 3,000 women ran the race, so it's always just this tremendously fun, empowering, awesome day. That's part of the reason I was willing to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning after a late night at the theater to do this thing, to come straight back to Jersey after. And then Saturday, I had a call back for a show, and now because we do like to talk about what we're doing, we talked about wanting to put it on our social media. I'm going to be going into the woods in November with studio players in Montclair, New Jersey, and I am going into the woods in a very interesting way. I am going to be playing the baker. Yes, you heard me right. I didn't leave off a word. I'm not the baker's wife. I'm the baker. And apparently, like we talked about our casting types a couple weeks ago, Juliana, it just keeps rolling on the rails.
Yeah, yeah. I love it.
Oh.
I was also on a journey besides the literal road trip.
Yes.
Do you hear something crazy?
Yeah.
I want to share this with you. I'm so proud of myself for doing something. Okay, stick with me here. I have been, you know how certain things keep popping up on things that you listen to or media that you watch, you consume, you hear other people talking about it. And one of these things has been getting off of commercial antiperspirant.
Okay.
Because of its connection with cancer and just like being that close to your lymph system, like it's kind of messing you up.
Humans are transdermal. Let's be clear, what we put on our skin goes in. So that is why it matters how many phthalates are in there, why it matters if what you've got in your sunscreen lotion is also what they use to, de-ice planes. Like, these things do matter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I have been on a journey since February to get off of it and go into natural deodorants. And I got to tell you, I'm on the other side. Did you smell me this weekend?
Well, I didn't want to say anything. No, actually, you always smell fine. You smell good. I didn't smell anything objectionable.
Oh, well, that's great. That's great. I mean, because as obsessed I am with my hair, I'm very self-conscious about how I smell. So like, I'm always like with breath mints. And I think it's from being on stage with people. I frequently do, intimate scenes, and I don't want there to be any noise. So I'm always like with the breath mints, and the fragrances. Anyway, so I finally got off, and I have been like 2 months now without using Secret, like commercial antiperspirants, by just using.
Well, now we can't have that ad from Secret run on the show, Juliana.
Oh, I know. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm going to shout out.
Time.
Schmidt's natural deodorant is really great. You got to kind of learn how to use it, and then using Stridex pads. The acid, the salicylic acid in it is really great. So anyway, I'm kind of proud of myself because it was an issue of great anxiety. I wanted to get off, but there was also this fear of, I don't want to be a smelly person. We all know those people. Rehearsal, whatever, and it's like, oh my God, do you know what kind of noise you're putting in to my olfactory senses? I cannot concentrate.
Yeah. No, totally. I didn't do the deodorant thing, but I did switch my my sunscreen situation. I now use Badger, which is great. It's very thick and a little bit chalky. You just have to sort of program your brain of what sunscreen's supposed to do. Like, you're used to rubbing it into your skin until it disappears, which, again, pursuant to de-icing planes, I'm so glad that has just gone in your pores. I just, reprogram myself that sunscreen is literally like clown white, almost. Like, actually, to the point, one of my favorite reviews I saw of it when I was debating which brand to use was, well, it didn't work at all. Like, I rubbed it until it went into my skin and it wasn't on my skin, and I got horribly burned. And I went, you rubbed it until you rubbed it off, lady. So that would be why. But no, I totally hear you. And that's that is advice well taken in our overall wellness, which is something we spoke of.
We just got to do our best.
Exactly. And speaking of doing our best, this is going to be kind of another ad hoc sort of episode this week. We decided it's fine because we've had planned content. Like, I think we both felt like we'd again, the phrase that comes to my mind isn't the most socially appropriate, but this is becoming my thing. It's like we birthed the mule on Friday. The weight off our shoulders because we've been planning it for so long and freaking out about it. Like, I physically felt light once it was done. Not to say it was a burden to do it. It was just, it's a lot of planning.
It felt like planning a wedding, and it's like,
true.
Oh, it's over. But not really over because we just dropped it last night, so we're waiting to get the feedback on that. So if you were there at the show, we would love to hear your feedback when you watch it in retrospect. If you see anybody please give us a shout out. Let us know what you think of the live show. We enjoyed it so much. It's something that we would like to do again.
We totally would. Yeah, exactly. So you want to have us come to you, let us know, and pop us an email, strangebutTrueDear@gmail.com, or, any of the social media sites, but, Yeah. So today we're kind of doing that, what's, tapping into the signals of the universe and what is speaking to us. Again, maybe I should have like transition music that's all new agey right now.
I can get that for you.
I kind of, I guess, alluded to this in our opening segment, given my extraordinary casting news coming up this past Monday with Into the Woods, and how it's sort of becoming hashtag roles I love, hashtag but never thought I'd get to play. So kind of, no surprise here, the conversation I kind of want to have in brief, because I could go on and make this a whole episode by itself, is kind of about non-traditional casting, because I do come from a background, Juliana, of having been to a women's college. You know, I was sort of getting sometimes out of necessity, needing to sort of alternate gender cast.
What do you mean by necessity?
Well, I was at an all-women's college, and while we did have access to first of all, members of the community around the Albany area who were semi-pro or pro actors, or actually contract in equity actors we were working with from day one, which was the other thing that kind of appealed to me and why I picked the college I did. We kind of straddled the line. Like, for instance, I would say the most straight up non-traditional cast I had was playing Charlie Brown in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, which was a ton of fun. But we sort of sidestepped any sort of weird, like, you know, it does get controversial for some people, and some quarters they're like, well, just cast it, or just don't do that show if you can't cast it. You know, we sort of sidestepped Charlie Brown by saying, you know, they're kids, blah blah blah, and we were all female, but who was really paying attention, whatever. But then we'd also do things like the Three Penny Opera, which was certainly kind of the definition of college theater. I can't think of
yes.
And while I did not play a man in that show for a change, we did cast the male street singer. If you don't know anything else about the Three Penny Opera, this is where Mac the Knife actually comes from. And our street singer is traditionally a baritone role. Cast it as one of my female classmates, and she did a fantastic job with it. She had a little French mustache, and like it was fun. You know, we didn't play. I think it was sort of with a nod and a wink too, because it's Brecht. You're talking about sort of a heightened reality anyway. So, you know, again, I guess I'd almost say it in a way, not apologizing for it, but like having a conceit that fits around it. A couple years after I left stage, they did Much Ado About Nothing, and they did do a very non-traditional cast with both Benedict and Dogberry being female in, I don't even want to use the term male drag because it seems to be sort of undermining it, but it's like, you know, they did it straight up that way. And again, I wasn't involved in that production, but two of my classmates were, two girls I've been on stage with frequently, and they had nothing but fantastic memories of it. And it really was it became a study in, you know, when you're an actor and you're a student of the human condition, ooh la la. One of the things you do sort of study in character types, you know, the kind of the difference in the way males and females are portrayed on stage, especially in a Shakespearean type setting. So I think in that way it's fantastic and educational, and I only wish I could have been still at my college when they did that production. Yeah. And, you know, the thing, I hate calling it male drag, Juliana. Is breeches roll a better way to put it?
Oh, yes, we use breeches rolls, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Or they call them oftentimes pants rolls.
Pants rolls. Yeah, exactly.
Or but Europe calls them breeches rolls.
Yeah, but it's something that I sort of started to kind of, we joked about this before, I've sort of fallen into, if you got a male role you can't cast and Kay came out and auditioned for your show, oh hey, let's use her. And I think for the longest time I sort of was treating it like my dirty little secret, you know, like I guess I could play guys, and I almost took a knock to my ego a little bit. Well, you know, oh well, we've got Kay and we can pass her off as a guy. And I think where I've started to have a bit of a turn around the corner on this type thing is, you know, we have managed, and I'm not saying we're in any way post-racial in casting, because God knows it keeps happening, but colorblind casting, I would say on the whole, is getting more traction. You've got shows like Hamilton that blew the doors off that idea and went, you know, we're just gonna cast it straight up the whole way. Yeah.
You know, I've noticed that it's easier to do colorblind casting in period pieces, far removed from the now, simply because it is something we are still very much dealing with. You know, if we were going to cast a show that takes place in the 1950s in America, and we use colorblind casting, it's going to feel a little bit more clunky because we know there's a lot of unspoken circumstances around that. Whereas in a Shakespearean piece, if we have a Black Hamlet, it's going to feel easier for us. And I just have to point that out because I know director friends of mine who are struggling with this thing, and it's like, white people, it's our fault. Okay, we got to deal with it. We got to figure it out. That we set up this culture that's making it a little bit clunky. So let's deal with it, and let's understand why there are issues, why some pieces are easier to cast as colorblind or not.
Right. Well, for instance, I'm also going to submit not just historic distance, but you've got a fantasy piece where you've got a piece. I'm specifically thinking of an actor who I've had the fortune to work with, Jelani Aladdin, who is currently starring as Kristoff.
Oh, yes, you were telling me.
Yeah. And, blowing the doors off the theater on the reg every night in a role that, yes, was performed by Jonathan Groff, and in the animated film, very white. I think it is a fantastic choice. I've seen people who are dismissing him as the token minority cast or the, we need to be PC cast. And I think that, first of all, it's doing a gross disservice to his talent, but two, there is literally nothing in the story. He was raised by trolls in the forest. Why does he have to be white and Scandinavian straight up? Someone explain this to me, because I'm not following you right now. So yeah, I agree with you in the fact that historic pieces, fantasy pieces, it is a little bit easier to see that easier. I feel like I need to put quotes over everything we're saying here, because you're still going to run up against the idiots who are like, well, that's not how it was done, and historically that's inaccurate. Like, right. You're not gonna, I don't think you're ever going to avoid that.
Yeah, and I think, and truly, America has a bigger issue with it than the rest of the world, right? So, my background is opera, and I in a couple opera forums, and it comes up every now and then, this idea of casting not white Violettas, or like certain roles that we're used to seeing. And certainly, definitely, Americans have a bigger issue with non-traditional casting than the rest of the world. Just want to point that out there.
Yeah, and I'm also gonna,
for obvious reasons.
Yeah, no, and I'm gonna hedge a little bit into kind of a little bit of a disturbing trend that I've noticed as well, though, with people who are like, well, I'm fine with colorblind casting. Like, you're almost saying it like, let me finish. I'm fine with colorblind casting, but gender switch casting? What's that about? It's like saying, I have black friends. Like, it's just got it leaves a weird flavor in my mouth a little bit. Like,
there's a precedent for non-traditional casting, specifically casting women in traditional male roles. For example, coming out on Broadway very soon, Janet McAteer is in Bernhardt Hamlet, which is the story of Sarah Bernhardt, and I think it's 1899, preparing the role of Hamlet.
Oh, I'm excited.
So there's no it's no coincidence that women there would be a trend for females doing traditional male roles during waves of feminism. So Bernhardt's doing this during first wave feminism. No coincidence that now here we are in the Me Too movement and Time's Up movement, and this is getting some time not only in our 1776 but Bernhardt Hamlet. Yeah. So this is in the ether already.
Right. You know what? So it's not traditional. I mean, let's be clear. We don't want to be kind of picking and choosing pieces out of the equality pie. I mean, or at the very least, if you're going to have your strong opinion, can we actually talk about it? Like, if we can't even have the conversation and you're just going to be dismissive, and I think social media makes this super possible for people to just sort of put their idea out there and be like, I don't want to have a debate, but, well, if you're posting it, clearly first of all, you want certain people to see it because something has seen that's itching at you. Two, now you're just closing yourself off and proving yourself to be, that person in the room. In the spirit of putting possibly not popular opinions out there, I mean, you were talking, Juliana, about kind of the history distance. I'll be honest. I've been having some issues with Joshua Henry being cast as Billy Bigelow in Carousel.
Yeah. We spoke about that actually on episode.
Did we talk about it on, or was that off after the fact?
You know what? I can't remember now.
Regardless, if this is a rehash, let me know, Michael, because we know he will. No, my issue, and I guess Carousel has also been on my mind because of our live show that we did last weekend. But instead of, I think the thing is, I'm all for colorblind casting as well, or non-traditional casting. Let's put it out there. If it makes you look at the text in a different way, if it adds almost a commentary to it without you having to
say here.
That's what I love about 1776, the way we've been doing it with the Women's Congress, because we haven't changed a word of the script. You've just got a full Congress of women sitting up there. You know what?
Yeah, here's the thing that we got to think about as theater people. Context matters. Our art does not exist without an audience. It's not theater. We're just actors in class or talking to a wall. Theater doesn't happen without an audience. So we have to keep their perceptions in mind. Not as a priority, but we have to keep that in mind. And there are times when a director can choose non-traditional casting as part of an important context for conversations that are already happening.
Yes.
In our society right now. So it's not often, many times non-traditional casting is a choice that's not out of necessity because you don't have enough men to do it. Right. Sometimes it is. But many, many times it is an intention. And if someone is usually having an issue, they're either ignoring the fact that there's an intention behind it, or two, just not using their imagination.
Yeah, it's theater is also a living, breathing thing. This ties back to our conversation about should we get rid of these old revivals or should we keep bringing them back. While I get the thing about the Billy Bigelow cast for me, using Joshua Henry, is I feel like instead of progressing a conversation here, we're almost regressing it a little bit, and I'm not
complicating things.
Not taking away from his talent at all.
Oh my God,
Bigelow is a problematic role, even with a white guy, and now we're casting a big black guy in there who's beating up on a little white girl, and I feel like it's a concern for me. And there are going to be people who disagree with me, people who bash me for it, and you know what? I'm good for that, but I want to have that conversation.
And maybe that's because you are aware of the fact that not all Americans are over the fact of stereotyping when it comes to race, right?
Boy, it plays every negative stereotype. I'm from a very weird dichotomy of a nation in the United States. We're New England. Our cities in the area of Albany are pretty progressive and blue, but you go even a half hour west, you go 20 minutes north, you get out of those cities, you're going straight into the countryside, and you've got people who are very, those libtards in Albany, or downstate in New York. Let's just, you know what? We need to secede from New York City and be two separate states. Like, these are legit conversations that happen. So I grew up with two very strong dialogues in each ear. And so, yeah, I am aware of that kind of thing. And I'm looking at this going, oh, good. Well, the guy who was, 4 doors down from my grandfather out in Charlton is going, of course the big black guy's beating up on the poor white girl. That's where that bothers me.
Yeah,
and you are totally welcome to disagree with me, but I want to have that conversation with you. I guess that's the bottom line on the takeaway of all of this, because this isn't something that we can solve in a neat little 10-15 minute segment, is just talk about it. You know what? Don't just throw your opinion out into the ether without being willing to kind of talk about it. I think that actually globally speaks to a lot of what's wrong with our society overall right now. Is the people who are waving their opinion stick around, but the moment that you're like, here, I have an opinion stick, let's cross swords, they go, oh, never mind, and they walk away. Or further, they will belittle you for even walking into the room and being like, well, your stick is stupid. I've officially killed this metaphor, but I tried really hard, Juliana.
How effect is that? I love it. Go feed the baby.
I had this horrible mental image of like being the baker on stage.
You're gonna have to do your own babies.
Shh. Anywho, we're so far off the beaten track right now. All right, so it's Juliana's segment now, so I'm being quiet and I'm hushing my baby.
Oh, Oh, geez. How can I go into after that? Well, I've been on this journey to get healthier. So I switched out to natural deodorant. I'm also, trying to get more fit and strong. And there's one tool that I use I'm an emotional eater.
Yep, ditto.
Everyone knows this about me.
Guilty.
I eat my feelings.
Yep.
But this is not like a lot of people use this diet advice. I feel like I've seen it in probably 3 or 4 different sources, but it's like wait 30 minutes when you have that, like, I have to have a piece of chocolate torte right now or I'm going to freak out. Just like give yourself a waiting period, and, do something else. Engage other senses during the waiting period.
Non-compatible behaviors are huge. It's that thing of like brushing your teeth after your meal.
Right.
Yeah, no, that is a huge tactic that people use. I get some blowback from people on it. They're like, no, I want a cookie. I don't want a bottle of water.
Yeah.
If you still want the cookie in a half hour, or you can endure the toothpaste taste, then maybe you do have a cookie. But
yes, right.
Yeah.
So that's actually a discipline that I have applied to other areas of my life.
Oh, do tell.
Okay. What's on my mind right now, with the news coming out about Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain?
Wow.
I myself have called the suicide helpline. Because during one point of my life, I felt that there was no way out. And I gave myself this tool of, you can do this thing after you call. You got to wait 30 minutes and you need to call the suicide helpline. And if you still want to do it, then you can. So today I do want to talk about suicide because that's in our conscious right now. And I was so distracted from what I was originally going to talk about today, as we know we were talking before, that I couldn't help but jotting down some ideas that I have about this. I am not a doctor. I don't even get cast as a psychiatrist in theater. I get called in, by the way, all the time to play psychiatrists specifically. Yeah. They never get cast, even when I'm wearing my glasses. I don't know what it is.
Because we look trustworthy. I've played a couple therapists. I get you.
Yeah. I don't pretend to know a lot about psychotherapy, except that I've been to therapy myself for many years. As an actor, we're not therapists, but a lot of acting is therapeutic. Oh, yeah. And when we build characters, we do dig into pathology and certain behaviors.
Oh, I was actually talking to my counselor. Full disclosure, I have a regular therapist. I still and she was like, knowing how shy you were as a kid, how the heck are you an actor? And I was like, there's safety in acting. You're working out your stuff and it's not me. This is the character that I'm working through. So yeah, psychology and acting are like this, man. They are tied together. Yeah,
for sure. So I did want to talk about just like, what do you do? What do you do when you feel like there's no way out? It's happened to me more than once. Now, I do have a diagnosis. I do have a thing where anxiety and depression is a very big player with how my brain works. So I just want to just go down some tools that I use. It's very specific to me as an actor, and hopefully this can help one person or help the depressed adjacent. Congratulations for you if you've never been depressed a day in your life. Number one, I think you're a liar.
That's what I was about to say. I was like, do I go that bold out? Yeah.
But number two, maybe you this is an area where you don't understand. Maybe a friend or a spouse, loved one of yours is going through something you don't understand. Maybe this will help.
And what do you say? What do you do? Because it's a very helpless place to be in. I've been on both sides of the coin. It's like, I want to help, but what do I say?
Yeah. So two things, two main ideas here is when you feel like overwhelmed, there are two things that really help. Number one, giving yourself a waiting period before you do anything permanent. And by permanent, I mean something that will leave a scar, something that will change your relationship, something that will make an impact on your life in a permanent way, even if it isn't resulting in death or some other loss. Before you do something permanent, give yourself a waiting period. Usually for me, this means overnight.
Right.
And sometimes, again, I'm not a doctor, but this is what works for me. I give myself 2 Tylenol PM just to make myself go to sleep,
Right.
because I know I will be able to think more clearly in the morning.
Oh God, it's so true though. When you feel that weight at night, like before bed, it's like,
extra lonely.
Oh boy. And my other thing is with my thyroid condition, sometimes I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and boy, nothing spiral spins in your brain like thoughts at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So I feel you, and yes, absolutely.
Exactly. So waiting period, and then I couple that with an action. And I've never heard the term non-compatible behavior, but I love that. That's perfect. Let me give you. Let me just put one thing in here. When you are depressed and you are in the spiral of depression, it feels like sitting under a waterfall. For me, my suicide ideation comes actually in a moment of anxiety and not so much depression, but sometimes those can get mixed up and I will be going back and forth between the two. To me, it feels like it's very loud sitting underneath a waterfall. And the idea of reaching out to someone feels as strange as trying to eat a piece of cake while sitting underneath a waterfall. You can't do anything. It's paralyzing. It's really, really loud. So I give myself a few things to do while I'm underneath the waterfall. This is kind of dumb. This is what I do.
Don't even judge it.
I play a game. So I give myself a private task, because being socially involved, it rarely helps me out of my depression or anxiety.
Right.
Okay, so my private tasks are, I have to redecorate a room. So I will go on a site like Kings Lane or Jocelyn Main or even Wayfair, and I'll choose a room in my house and I'll completely redecorate it by putting things in my cart. Shopping therapy. Of course, never buy these things.
Right.
But I give myself a task. Okay, during my waiting period, I'm going to give this, let's say, 2 hours, or I'm going to give this 12 hours, whatever it is. Sometimes I feel like I can only wait half an hour. If I've only got half an hour, then I say, okay, in the next half hour, try to decorate this room virtually. So I will shop online by putting things in my cart with a goal in mind to redecorate a room. If this happens, okay, one thing I do for dieting, so I'll give myself a waiting period, wait 30 minutes for the craving to pass. And then I'll also say, okay, after I eat 4 cups of spinach or kale, 4 cups is a lot of kale.
Then I was going to say, I won't be near your bathroom, but go with God.
Then you can eat whatever you want.
Right.
And usually by the 2nd cup of kale, I'm like, I'm so done. I don't want to eat anything. I'm so full. And it passes.
That's another classic incompatible behavior, because you've actually filled up the space. There's no room, in your stomach. There you go. Yeah.
So I will say, all right, I can act on this behavior. I can send this hateful email. I can do damage to myself. I can damage a relationship. After I walk 2 hours in the sunshine.
Yeah.
2 hours in the light, get in the sun. There are things that you can do when you're in a good place to do what I call prepare my bomb shelter.
Right.
So, it's so funny. I've got these notes. I was showing you. I've got them. They're all like, they're kind of crazy because I was overwhelmed with these feelings. But you know what's funny? You know what I wrote this down on? This is a little card that came from interiordefine.com. And one of the things that I do when I'm depressed is build my couches, build a couch, my ideal couch. Nice. And so, in Interior Define, they will, you can order swatches for free. And so I've got the swatches of this is my ideal blue velvet couch. Oh. And I am very sensuous in my life. This can help me be a distraction. So yeah, I went ahead and ordered my swatches.
I'm jealous.
One time when I was super depressed. This is another one. So they'll send you 5 swatches. But I just thought it was funny. I ended up writing on one of my medications.
It happens. It happens. Oh yeah.
What to do. So in preparing my bomb shelter, one of those things is knowing that I can go back to this website and create a new couch, something like that. Here's some other things that I do. When I'm feeling super depressed, this is for me. This is not for everybody, but it is never useful for me to reach out to certain people. that you might think would be helpful. For example, I don't reach out to my parents.
Yeah.
I don't reach out to sometimes not even a spouse or significant other or BFF is the useful person to reach out to. Take that with,
well,
not everybody understands.
I can try to put a little bit, at least, because I totally get this. Those are the people who have such a personal investment in you still being a part of their life that, they're going to try to, they're not necessarily going to hear you. They're going to want to fix. You get what
That's right. I've used this line before with significant others who, when I'm in a period, I'm like, no, I'm telling you I'm upset because I want you to get in the puddle with me.
Yeah.
And some people will just stand outside the puddle and be like, get out of the puddle, get out of the puddle. I'm eating, get out from underneath the waterfall. Come enjoy this cake. It's wonderful cake. And you're like, I can't. I cannot get out. I need somebody to be in my puddle with me. And you're right. Many people who are very close to us are invested in. And they'll also say like, why you've got kids, you've got the most beautiful thing in the world. You just don't think that way when you are in a spiral of depression. Your brain says to you that these people are better off without you in their life.
Have you seen the video that's been going around, by the way, on social media? The mom who was talking about trying to just describe what it's like when she's feeling suicidal. Literally that. She's like, you know what happens? I understand that it is my illness talking to me.
Yes.
It is my illness telling me that they would be better off without me.
Yes, yes.
And she's like, but the voice in your head is so loud in saying, well, they'll get through it and they'll be better off if I'm not here.
Yes.
That's not true. And when you can say to yourself, that's my illness talking and not me. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the things in building your bomb shelter is, get a vocabulary for yourself to describe this monster. So for me, I have a whole vocabulary. If you want to talk to me about it later, I'll let you know. But I describe this thing, the illness, is as a separate thing from my true self, right? And actually, let me go into this a little bit. Using my actor tools, I have over the past 15 years. Actually, maybe this is like in the past 10 years. Postpartum depression was a huge thing for me. And when you overlay postpartum over an existing mental illness, becomes like totally horrifying thing to go through. But about 10 years ago, I created a character, an internal character inside myself. I feel like I was talking to somebody about this, but she was based on Mrs. Potts from
well, now you got my attention, as you know.
She's Angela Lansbury's voice, with the body of a Mrs. Potts, except very plush and comfy, who's got my back. Right. Whenever you're going, again, using actor tools, when actors are having trouble creating characters that do things that they wouldn't do, or they're extra mean or extra villainous, or they're supposed to be the lead of the show, but yet they do this horrible thing. Right. I always say this is about survival. No matter how good a person, there's always going to be something in us, in our reptilian brain, that wants us to survive, right? And when we're in the depths of this suicide spiral, there is some part of your brain that wants you to survive. And I try to feed that part of my brain when I'm feeling good, so that part of my brain can have a voice that's a little bit louder than it has been. Also, okay, so this is what I use with my significant other. Okay. When I'm having a hard time, that's what I say. We have a safe word. The safe phrase is, I'm having a hard time. Right. That means I'm not really rational right now. I'm really struggling. I'm distracted. I can't even hold a conversation. If you tell me to be in a better mood or that I'm being cranky, I will probably lose it. Yeah. So this, the first thing I say is, I'm having a hard time. The second thing is, like, the next level is, I'm going to go take a shower. That is for me because I need to create sensory experiences. Again, this is for me. I have to create sensory experiences. So what I do is I go take a shower. I keep in my bomb shelter. Yes, this is a physical place in my bathroom underneath the sink. These are shower bombs. They are similar to bath bombs.
Yeah.
So you put them in your shower and they make it fragrance and they last like, 15 minutes. I'm not a long shower person, but I'll tell you when I am
Oh,
stressed, suicidal, I will be in the shower for a long time. I will get
Lifeline is huge. It is a major coping mechanism. Yeah.
yeah. It distracts your it's not a distraction as much as like you want to feel in your body again.
Wakes you up. Yeah.
Here's another thing. Actually, a friend of ours introduced this to me. This is Rescue Remedy, but these are the little lozenges.
Those. Oh, was that a Jeff
And I used to,
recommendation?
yeah. Because I know the dropper that goes underneath your tongue.
Yep.
I have been using a lot of Rescue Remedy this week because I got really upset about the Kate Spade thing.
Yeah.
So I actually picked up some of these lozenges. Help. Okay, scents of all kind do it for me. So you can always, if you live in my household, if you're a flatmate or we're doing a show together, you will be able to tell how stressed out I am by how many candles I have going. I also have a subscription to Scentbird, so I will get my fragrances and
candles.
And just remind my body that this is not the only way to feel.
Right.
That's the key for me. It might be totally different for somebody else, but for me, I have to get, my brain is not my friend.
Yeah.
And my body is going to be, my body wants to survive. Also, there's a feeling with anxiety and depression under your skin where it's like bubbling. It's almost like carbonation underneath your skin and through your veins where you just want to rip your skin or whatever. So I address that. I'm like creams on my skin, on my body, parts of my body that have been my friend and parts of my body who are not my friend. I'm just getting my body, my sense of smell, my hearing, all my senses into feeling good.
I feel that so hardcore because my thing is an anxiety condition that I've had since I was very young and only recently got a name on it. And what I would feel is all of this I was like, I couldn't even put it into words. I was like, it's just this thing. It's this thing, like everything. And what I needed to do was find a way to let that energy off.
Yeah.
And for me, one of my biggest coping mechanisms is getting a workout in, going out in the sun for a run.
Yeah.
You talked about building your shelter. I'm actually sort of an I do kind of the opposite of that. My need to, because I feel like it's like avalanche syndrome for me. I feel like everything's piling on. And then suddenly everything, like that shelf I didn't dust. It's like everything is just starting to.
Yes.
I fail. I have failed everything. Nothing is working. So focus tasks, like I don't go to, Packy refers to my mother's tendency as a rage clean. I will weed the garden if it's not done. I will no matter how menial the task, get it done, pick things up, move them away. Like that is kind of that's where my Zen comes back to. That's a still mess. But at least it gives me this feeling like I've
accomplished something.
And no, the avalanche isn't going to get me. That's where
So another thing is along the way. So when I'm generally feeling great, I generally am, and I love talking about medication. I'll talk about medication for you, whatever. We can compare and contrast what we've been prescribed, what works, what doesn't. Along the way, in your daily life, I know that reaching out to certain people is going to be a huge fail, but there are certain people that we meet in our lives when you're like, okay, if I'm ever in an emergency where like I want to do something permanent, this would be a good person to reach out to. There's a director that we both know and work with that I would work out. She would be an in case of emergency call. There's another woman actually in our 1776 cast that awesome. I'm just now getting to know her, but I know, okay, that person, because there is a heavy sense of being judged when we're feeling this way, and we need someone to say like, well, having someone say, well, this is what I do when I feel bad isn't necessarily helpful. Right. But we need someone to get in our puddle with us, and it doesn't have to be someone who's like super close to us, but we all know those people that have a wisdom and a perspective that we know, like, hey, I'm really struggling. I need like just 5 minutes, or, can you on the phone, can you give me a hug? Can you send me a hug? Whatever, someone who would recognize the call for help for what it is, and just, just make notes along the way of who that is. All right, I'm turning my thing now. Okay. Also, we make friends with people in virtual friendships of people who are going the same way. So there's a couple podcasts. The Hilarious World of Depression is a great podcast to make you feel not alone. My Favorite Murder, they talk about mental health all the time, and that. Suicide Buddy is another new podcast that's coming out. It's okay for me. I'm going to embrace. I'm not going to try to get out from under the waterfall. I'm going to use that time to acknowledge I'm okay with getting dark. Here's another thing. Are you ready for this? Okay. When I think of Ophelia, I think of that beautiful painting of her laying, and I think of like the Anne of Green Gables reciting the poem, and I think of like, this is so bad. This is so bad. I start planning my funeral.
Oh God! Wow.
Now, seriously, here's the rule. I give myself a rule. I'm not being glib when I say that suicide is something that pops in my head more than once. I got to tell you, it's a super real thing, and it's a super scary thing to me. When people that seem successful are committing suicide, it freaks me out. This is one thing I actually do. I say, yes, you can think about your death, you can think about your suicide, you can think about your funeral, but you have to write it down. So I start writing down, and I get like super like detailed and anal about it has to be this music, and I want to make sure that I want to be buried in one of those pods that become a tree. That's what I really, really want. And I'm super like specific about the location and like facing, and I want to get it. I want to make sure that the feng shui of where I'm facing is just right. Oh my gosh. So I start getting into that detailed about my funeral. And that's a real fun thing to do when I'm in the bomb shelter. And just engaging my imagination.
Right.
That way. So I've engaged my senses, my body. I'm touching my skin. I'm smelling things I really like. My imagination is going to like decorating my customizing my ideal couch, or it's planning my ideal funeral, my ideal burial. And it's also, just going through these things in my head, like preparing myself for this inevitability of the tide is going to come back out. The depression, but I know that the tide's it's going to come back in too. I am going to feel better. You don't care about feeling better when you want to do something permanent. You don't care, but you got to remind you, there's a part of your body, physically part of your body that wants to survive. And you got to create these shortcuts. For me, it's the smell of roses. So here's one thing I got for, I think I got this for my birthday. This is peony and rose. It's an oil. It's argan oil that's scented. I put this in my hair. So even this, so I have an immediate response to smelling this means survival.
Right.
To me, it's shorthand for me. Senses are shorthand for what I want to create in my life, and just having a constant thing that says, it's okay. This is a thing that I have. This is a monster that lives with me, and if I keep this monster on a chain and keep it in my house, I can keep it somewhat domesticated and just know I have a plan of action. So that's what I wanted to talk about today.
No, and you said something extremely smart that I want to underline a little bit, because I do find myself when I'm in my anxiety pits is kind of how I feel. Like I mentioned how it feels like the avalanche is coming and I'm not crawling back out. The kind of the tide coming in and out thing that you were mentioning, knowing that it's going to come back, like that thing to want to push it away forever and be done, almost takes some of its power out of it. It's like, it's going to come. I know this is the way it goes, but I know how I will get through it, and it will go out again. Like I have days where I'm like, oh my God, like what even right now? And it might sound dumb too, but I say, you know what, Kay? It's Tuesday. There will be a Wednesday. You know what? Let's start exciting ourselves about Wednesday. Right now you feel like there's a brick wall here that you're not going to get through, but guess what? Wednesday's there. So, that simple, like I find that to be smart, and being kind to yourself, and that given that it comes and goes.
Yeah. 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 And that's another thing. I mean, maybe I'm super hippie, but I have
maybe I am too, though, because I love it. I'll make so much
I have a very strong connection to water and water sources. So like getting in the shower is very helpful for me. The best place I ever lived was on a lake. My ideal home is on being in water sources. And it's not just me, like that's a thing. Green spaces and water sources are a thing.
We've never even had this conversation.
Yeah.
My dream home has like a lake out that I can walk out on a dock, and like maybe I've always chalked it up to being like growing up near the Catskills and the New England bit of me, but like having like a mountain lake is like that's actually one of my zen places mentally.
Yeah. So if you have a propensity toward this and you've gone through the, oh my God, there are different stages too, that you begin to like fantasize about suicide, even though you're not really wanting to do it. You start fantasizing. Let that be a red flag. Get yourself to a therapist immediately. You don't even have to tell anybody except, just make the appointment. There are apps that you can use, but let that be a red flag. And then also identify what makes you feel more human. For me, I know it's water and I know it's scents.
Yeah. No, that was wow. This was hugely important. I think I'm going to reevaluate my This Is a Light episode. I think this Kay and Juliana have a lot of very deep thoughts that here we are to give to you in a little package. So please accept it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know what? I think there are people who are starting to be fans of What's Making Me Strange this week, but I feel like we sort of threaded What's Making Us Strange this week throughout this episode. Like
we made a whole episode of What's Making Us Strange this week.
Yeah, or making us this week, I think.
Yeah, I like that.
We're gonna have.
Well, we are strange, dear.
Yes, indeed. So it's not that we're skipping this segment, but if you want to see What's Making Kay Strange this week, go back to my video about my 5.
Yeah.
That is all of my strangeness. And look forward to what is going to be coming as a little bonus. All I'm going to say is Kay is going on a vacation again and is going to be keeping this diary, and there are going to be guest stars and weirdness and more clip art moments and weird sound effects than you can shake a stick at. That is if things go the way I'm expecting to, which is to say unexpectedly. So What's Making Me Strange this week, I guess if I was going to put it in one line, would be preparing for the unexpected and just riding the waves. But
that's it. And What's Making Me Strange this week is I'm going to send you a picture of this. We can maybe put it up on Instagram. I have an Afghan hound.
Yeah.
Ticks are an issue, this time of year. And I love to take her hiking with me. She's great. So I gave her a haircut.
Oh, no.
But I decided to be a little whimsical. I've never been whimsical. I've always given her like a sporting or a show haircut. She's got a style. She's got a look. So I'm going to post that.
Please
that's just
do.
a little tidbit. But always subscribe. Follow us on Instagram, on Facebook. Give us your feedback on social media, and then on the videos themselves. If you're a YouTube subscriber, let us know what you think. What's your favorite part of the show?
Twitter, Pinterest, everything out there. We are at Strange Deer pretty much everywhere you could want to look for us. And as I dropped our email earlier, I'll just repeat it now: strangebutTrueDeer@gmail.com.
Yeah.
If you want it to be in a slightly less public comment on a post setting, that's cool too. If you want us to come do a live show for you, if you want to let us know, talk about your coping mechanisms or whatever, and you don't necessarily feel like that, that's something you want to be putting out on social media, our email is fine for that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we've opened up a doorway for a bigger conversation too, outside of just the arts and our funny wackiness. I mean, what is a podcast medium for if not to find your tribe, as you love to put it, Juliana, and to kind of feel like you've got that person who gets you. I think that's what makes podcast media so fantastic. So on that note, we both got to get it going. I got to go. I got to go pack my suitcase because I'm going to be traveling over the next week. So I guess we'll give us our usual sign off, Juliana.
That's it. Keep being strange, dear.
But not in a way that gets you arrested. That's the unofficial under caption.
That is the unofficial one.
Have a good week, guys.
Bye.
Bye.